everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox. I am really having a fantastic time going through this journey of self-discovery. I'm becoming so aware of things, sometimes, and I'm so glad that this show kind of transitioned into this theme of self-discovery, journey of self-discovery, because what it has done for me is made me so consciously aware moment by moment, because that's how I live my life, moment by moment, not day by day, because that's 24 hours too long. But moment by moment, what happens is that you become so consciously aware of things around you, things that are happening, your thoughts, conversations that you're having. You become aware. You keep everything intentional. So I am discovering some things about me, just little things. And what it is doing is really just opening that door for me to just step right in and walk in my true identity, my true authentic self. And what happens is that it brings freedom in your mind and freedom to just be your true authentic self. And this way you can relate to people in just on a different level. So I'm really enjoying that. And I hope that you are really seeing the changes within you, within your walk, every moment. Again, I encourage you to live your life moment by moment, not necessarily day by day, but whatever works for you, that is what you are going to do. Because one thing that you have to know is that you have a brain and you are smart. You are smarter than you know you are. You are intelligent and you are able to assess situation and process things for yourself. You've got to know that. You have to know that is off the bat. You have to acknowledge that you are smart and you are able to figure things out. And that which you can't figure out, you create. You are able to analyze and assess situation, because what we're talking about now is critical thinking skills. And that is where you are going to start processing things, analyzing situation, and looking at things with critical eyes. You're going to start using logical reason, so that you can assess every situation in your life. If we don't take responsibility for our lives, in most cases you just go through life on autopilot. You just live your life day to day, and wait for things to work out. But it doesn't work that way. You have the ability to make things happen, because that's the whole objective. Also, you want to create for yourself the life that you want. Because if you don't do it, guess what's going to happen? You're going to default to the life that happens to you. And you don't want that. You don't want that at all. You have the ability to create. You have the ability to make things happen. And if you have situations that, um, causes you to be stuck or to be, become paralyzed in your thinking, you have the ability to resolve your own situation. Once you put those things in practice, you're going to see how, with time, you're going to come to an understanding to know that whatever it is that happens to you, you can figure it out. And whatever you want to happen to you, you can also provoke that to happen. You can make it happen. It all starts by, again, this little box that not box, little big box that you have right here. You see, if you don't create that life, my friend, you're going to be living on autopilot and just really be at the mercy of what life brings to you. And then you'll fall victim to stuff that you don't really need to. But when you are intentional, when you are aware, then you will understand that you are well able to. Oh, this mic is on. Oh, yes, it is on. You'll see that you are well able to create the life that you want. if we don't if we don't take time to really study ourselves and put ourselves in a place where we can manage ourselves, manage our emotions, manage our feelings, manage our thoughts, manage our behavior, manage our actions. We ought to be able to be self-managed. Self-managed. That is the most fascinating journey. That is the most fascinating experience that you can have. Just the thought of managing yourself, managing your thoughts, managing your feelings, managing your emotions, managing your behavior, managing your actions. And this way you take full responsibility. And you know why it's important? Because the person that you are now, unless you have gone through a journey of self discovery, then you are uh, shaped into an identity based on external influences, the things that you have learned, the social construct that you have been a part of, the culture that you're a part of, the society in which you live, your community, everything that's around you, your religious indoctrination, all of that shapes who you are. And sometimes, and then it shapes you not because of who you are, it shapes you based on cultural structure, cultural construct, and religious construct. It shapes you. And that happens by default. It happens to all of us. And that's why sometimes we go through a lot of frustration because we feel the pressure of society, of social, of the construct that comes upon us, and sometimes we simply don't want to perform accordingly. And that's where it comes in, that we are where we get so caught up in what would people think and what will people say about us. Why? Because the whole society is functioning by a common denomination. And you have got to get away from that in order for you to be your true authentic self and be creative and innovative and live the life that you want. For me, it's a life of pleasure. For me, it's a life of pleasure, pleasantries around me, and fun and excitement and joy and peace and contentment. That is my purpose, as I always say. So everything I do it with that in mind so that I can gain pleasure out of it, even this moment. And whatever works for you, you determine what the purpose of your life is. If you don't decide what the purpose of your life is, then other folks will decide that for you, or just the social again. And when I say social, it's not just the society outside. It could be the social structure in your family, the social structure in your household. All of that has influence over you, over us, over everyone. But once you come to a place where you are seeking and you're becoming aware of who you are, then those influences will go to bay because you will be aware and so forth. But sometimes we approach this whole journey with traumatical situations, with trauma from our upbringing, perhaps depending on the environment in which we were raised, the experiences we have had, and then religious indoctrination is such. I know that in the Christian religion, in most religions anyway, there are rules and laws and regulations and just things that you are indoctrinated to follow. And what's interesting, or what's important at this point, is that you do your own search to find out what works for you, to find out what's true, because that is the truth that will set you free. It is your truth, not someone else's truth, but it is your truth. But what I have learned, and with many of you, is that there's a lot of religious trauma, particularly above everything, because people, they are afraid of uh, hell and damnation and things of that, and not living up to par based on the teachings that they have had. And it's important that you understand that if you have had any kind of religious trauma, it has to be healed. And when you talk about healing, healing is a whole different uh, experience from the trauma. The trauma, if you keep, the trauma is a place where you are familiar with. And when I say trauma, I don't mean that something, uh, you know, big and that may have happened. It's just the drip, drip, drip of the indoctrination. And people that people that fear eternal damnation, that is a religious trauma. If that's what you believe, that can that can really affect the way you live, the way you make decisions. Because why? You're operating in fear. You are afraid. You're afraid of punishment. You're afraid of judgment. You're afraid of, you live life with shame and blame and all of those emotions and all of those things that will keep you back. You can't be authentic if you live in shame or blame or judgment. You can't be authentic. Why? Because if you fear punishment, obviously it's either someone's ideology, a philosophy, or a belief system. And you need to, and that obviously would have come from the outside in. A belief system comes from the outside in, an ideology from the outside in, someone's philosophy from the outside in, a doctrine from the outside in. And in most cases, that has been taught and developed and grown, from you were a little kid until your adult life. And unless you have washed that information or revisit that information to either change, uh, ditch, or modify it, then you are living your life shaped in an identity that's been influenced from those external forces. What is important, my friend, is that healing begins to take place. And in this journey, your journey of self discovery, it's important that you understand that healing has to take place. The trauma has to be healed. The trauma from your, whether it's your environment or your religious upbringing, whatever trauma that you have been through has to be healed. And when you talk about healing, healing requires a whole new mindset. It requires a whole new set of thoughts, a different thinking pattern. That's when you begin to heal. You will say, I no longer follow this. I no longer believe this. Of course, once you have done your own research, once you have dug in and, come to find out, like something as simple as hell. In the Christian doctrine, they talk about hell, that eternal damnation and so forth. Once I came to understand that there is no such thing, and even when I was in religion for many years, I didn't really buy into that. For some reason, that I just didn't buy it. So I really never had fear of any kind of damnation because I just figure if it's true, well, I'm not going there. And it's not because I'm following any laws, because I didn't want to be subject to those rules and laws and do this and don't do that. For some reason, I thought I was eccentric, special, different, and that I would have gotten a pass if if there's to avert hell. So, but so many people believe that. People believe that. That's why I remember at church every Sunday, people would be going to the altar Sunday after Sunday, Sunday after Sunday, asking for forgiveness, repenting of their sin. If they thought they did something wrong during the week, they would be so condemned, so guilty. It's a traumatic experience, and people that have been involved in religion, and that's changing now rapidly, exponentially. It's just changing because people are becoming aware and enlightened of the truth. And that is the truth that sets you free. It is your truth, not the truth from someone else. It is your truth that will set you free. But So once you become aware of those truths, then you start uh, processing the information that you were taught. You analyze it, you process the information, and you apply critical thinking skills. That is part of your journey of self discovery. You apply critical thinking skills, you start looking at things logically and use reasoning. I know there's a passage in the Bible that says, "Lean not onto your own understanding." You must lean onto your own understanding. Otherwise, you will be leaning on the understanding of someone else. You'll be following the ideology, the philosophy, and the doctrine of someone else. And that's what religion is all about. Because if you sit and if you think about religion, you'll see that it's been fashioned, it's been set up in such a way to manipulate and control. And yeah, it could be hard to get away from that, but it requires change, and the change comes from your healing. That's when you heal the trauma with a new set of thoughts, with a new set of beliefs, with a new set of attitude toward life. Because otherwise, just imagine you're born and you grow up and you're in this mindset and you just live a life uh, always uptight, stressed out, wondering, thinking, lack, sickness, and you accept all those things without knowing the truth. And then, comes your latter years, and then you just you expire without living. And my whole thing is about living. And for me, the purpose of life, the purpose of my life, is pleasure, to really enjoy life in its fullness, to really live a meaningful life, to really live an intentional life, and to really, live as I came up by the principles that works for me: love, kindness, and compassion, and that's it. And that's worked for me. But the healing I'm talking about, my friends, the healing requires a new set of thoughts. And unless you give yourself permission, unless you allow yourself the freedom to establish a new set of belief system, thoughts in your mind, you won't heal, because trauma is a familiar place. Trauma is a place of comfort. Trauma is what you know. Trauma is the way you have been living for years. And the very desire that you have had to make a change to your life is what is calling for healing, is what is calling for healing. There is trauma and there is healing. And to tell you the truth, no one can help you with the healing, because the healing is a decision to step away from trauma. For me, and the reality is, I don't believe I went through any kind of religious trauma. I was indoctrinated and followed a lot of the stuff. I was really deep into it, became so involved in church and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't have any church hurt or any kind of big disappointment, or that was not my experience. But I did follow the doctrine, the best I could. But, in my mind, I always had questions, except that you can ask these questions in church, because um, they're not encouraged. And even if they were, they don't know the answer. The pastors don't know anything different or better than you. As a matter of fact, pastors, they prepare a sermon. That's why it's always the same thing over and over. They prepare it on Saturday night. So they don't know anything different than you are able to know. Once you take the time and you start, meditating and studying and seeking for your truth. That's the only way you're going to heal. But all the things that you have learned, there's there's so many things, and then they turn into cliches that we say. Cliche, one situation with this girl trying to comfort her friend who just needed a hug, and she said something to her like, God gives his toughest battles to his toughest soldiers. Let me see. She said, God only gives no, God only gives his toughest battles to his toughest soldiers. And my question would be, what the hell is that? Like, what kind of battle? Would you give your kids a battle? What for? A battle for what? And so, was that meant to encourage her? Was she supposed to feel some kind of way, special, eccentric, like a, 4-star general or something? I mean, what was that about? It was a cliche. And I guess it was meant to comfort her. To the end, the girl said, all I needed was a hug. And she's telling her, you're going through this battle, and then God knows best, and then things like those are all cliches. There must be there must no. There is a reason. There's a reason for this. There is a purpose for this battle. Imagine going through life thinking always when something happens that it's a battle, it's a trial, it's a test. You needed a breakthrough. No, when something happens, it just happened. You just have to sit, figure it out, and solve it. It's that simple. But if you spend time thinking that you're going through a battle, that is traumatic. Why? Because you probably sometimes feel not only victimized but picked on. And why would you do that to your child? That would be wicked. Giving you a battle for what? What is the purpose? This is just madness. That's my assessment. When I think of all that, and then people say, don't worry, God is in control. If God is in control, then you'll do nothing or the bare minimum. That's not the way it is. Find out for yourself. Those are all cliches. It's a blessing in disguise. Why disguise the blessing? Why do you think it's a blessing in disguise? It's a blessing. That's it. You averted a wreck because you got stuck at the light. That's not a blessing in disguise. You just got stuck at the light. The accident was at the other light. That's it. Stop adding stuff and creating all these construct and conventional norms that we normalize. We make it seem so normal. We say these things and we don't really understand how it affects our psychic, our thinking. Excuse me. I need to get my smaller cup. Yeah, so it's you need we need to make it uncomplicated. This whole doctrine, religious doctrine, is too complicated. At least for me, it was. Once I got out of it, my husband said, "That's it, I'm done." Once we left and I start really unpacking all the things that I did, that I thought that I started unpacking all of that, then I thought, gosh, this is so complicated. Why? Because, now life is so simple. And a lot of the things that happen, they're just life. Why do we have to attach a tag and say it happens for a reason? It's a blessing in disguise. There's a purpose for it. You are a tough soldier. Why attach all of that? That can create trauma. You know why? Because if you think you are a tough soldier and something happens, first of all, you're going to label it a battle. Or you're going to say you're going through a trial or a test. And all of those things, to me, they were not necessary. They're just not necessary. That's a mindset. It is a concept. If you're really honest with yourself, you will find out that this whole ideology, this whole philosophy, religious ideology, religious philosophy, religious doctrine, they're based on concepts, human concepts, all of it. When I figured that out, and I, step aside and I thought, wait a minute, that stuff doesn't apply to my life. All of it vanished. No devil, no, no, Satan, no Lucifer, none of that. It all vanished. Why? It was a concept that I entertained. That's why you see every time somebody says something online, it's always, I'm giving you a word. I'm giving you a word of encouragement. Yeah, it's great to share a word of encouragement, but not be always in the need of because of an adverse situation. When you're in a situation, think I can figure it out. When I have a situation and if it's something pertaining myself, I figure it out. Figure it out. You figure out the answers. You figure out what to do. And if it has anything to do within my household or whatever something needs to be, then I make a decision. Or, I make a decision if I can do it, if it doesn't require like, collaborative decision, then I engage my husband. If it's something big in the house, then of course we discuss it. And I always, we come up with something. But the effort is always to uh, find an answer, to resolve it, to take care of it, to figure it out, and we do. But if I can come up with something without burdening someone else, my husband, without telling, I may tell him, this happened, I fixed it, and that's it. That's you stand in your womanhood or your personhood. You just make a decision, and it's fascinating because once you decide to use your critical thinking skills and uh, start training those muscles to think, you will see that it becomes easier when you have a situation and you think, well, I'm responsible for this. I'm responsible to make a decision. I'm responsible to figure things out. I am responsible to make things happen. I am responsible. When you know it's you, then there's like a sixth sense that just pushes out, and either, you come up with something, it's like, oh my gosh, it dawned on me. That's when we say, oh yeah, it dawned on me, or why didn't I think about this before? Why didn't I think about that? And or you would get the answer through different sources that are totally independent of someone that you know. You're smarter than you have acknowledged that you are. You are smarter. Think of it that way. You are intelligent. But we don't, people don't, you don't tell yourself that. I do. After I learned this whole principle of, being sovereign, independent, and the ability to think. So we don't tell ourselves that I'm smart. I do. I tell myself that. And, all these affirmations that we make, well, you can make that an affirmation, but that's why you see, even people, they have this thing about speaking good about yourself in public. And it's not being braggadocious or proud. No, it's just being confident. If you know you are good at something, then you can say it. Not everybody's gonna, and it doesn't matter. That's one of the things that I have learned is that what people say, think, or say, that's one of the things that you're gonna have to kick out. And you know why that's so? Why we think about that so much is because social structure. The social structure is a culture, a society. Is the norms is based on the acceptance of the majority. They set up a sort of system or rules, laws, regulations, and it just it's like an established norm. So that means everybody's going to be looking for you to be a certain way. the expectations of society. It's kind of getting warm in here. Put this a little cooler. Cement cooler. So it is yeah, it's based on what the social structure is. It's based on what the social structure, whatever they have decided. That's why when you fall out of that, when you get out of that, people get nervous. They don't like it. They don't. I remember one time we invited someone to our home, and was someone that was anyway. We invited him to our home. And he brought his girlfriend, and this was a new girlfriend because he was going through a situation, and we were, you know, coaching and so forth. And the point is, so his marriage broke up and so forth, and he came to our house and with his girlfriend, beautiful girl, beautiful girl, beautiful couple. And so she took, it was like in the winter, I guess, and she took off her coat and she had tattoos all over her arm. I mean, she was tattooed up. And I like tattoos, or I should say, I admire tattoos. I would get one right here, but if I wasn't, I don't like pain, so I don't. I'm not going to submit myself to that unless they put me under general anesthesia. I would definitely get a tattoo right here. But anyway, the point is, so she had these freshly done tattoos that looked so good, but it was like all over. And I know that and it was a young woman, relatively young. She was fine in it, but I know the boyfriend, who's the person that we know, he is from a more conservative uh upbringing. So I knew he was a little uncomfortable, and there was no need for that. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I love your tattoos." That's what I said to his girlfriend, because they really look nice. But again, she had her both arms tattooed. And so when you look at that, that is something that society would frown on. Society would frown on that. But in my mind, every day, when I see something different that's out of the norm, I practice not becoming alarmed. Like, oh, like what's up with you? I practice that, and I just think, wow, this person is being themselves. There's this person that has all these hooks all over their faces. Now, that's not something that I admire. But what I admire about that is the courage to do it for you, if that's what you like. It's not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong, true or false. If that's how you see yourself, if you are comfortable with that, then that is okay for you. May not be okay for me, by choice. By choice. That's not what I want to do. I don't want to, you know, that's not what I want to do. But if you want to do that, then you have to be at a place where you feel free to be your true, authentic self and not be concerned about what would people think, what would people say, and just really limit yourself from who you really want to be. Who is to say? And I don't care about any kind of repercussions. That's that person's life. They were with us, respectful. We had a beautiful meal, and it was done with. And I like myself so much for being that way, because it frees me up to free you up. It allows me to be free, and it allows me to see you free. free to make the choices that you want. Her tattoos was not were not infringing on my freedom. And I always say you can be as free as you want to be, as long as your freedom does not infringe on the freedom of another. And who knows, that could have been healing for her. A sign of whether it's rebellion. And sometimes I call this a sweet rebellion, when you defy the norm and you want to break out from tradition just so that you can be your true authentic self and not follow the status quo, conventional norms, traditions, religious doctrine, and be who you are. That's a place to behold, my friend. That's where you want to be. And when you get to that, when the more you practice freeing yourself from the trauma and embracing healing, which is a new mindset, a new set of information, a new attitude. When you start embracing that, it would be a mindset, it would be an attitude, your thoughts, your thinking, your feelings, your behavior, your action. You would start being different. You will like yourself. Some people may not embrace it, they may not like it, but it doesn't matter, as long as you know who you are and you like who you are. The healing is necessary. All the other stuff, all this thing about I can't bridge my religious indoctrination with my desire, excuse me, to with my desire to discover myself. All of that, if you're having a hard time reconciling that and bridging it, something is not right. Because if this were true, then you would not have that that feeling of conflict. You would not feel conflicted. Why? Because truth, where there's truth, truth is truth. That is not your truth. All this stuff over here has turned into trauma. And it's a comfortable place. It's a place that you would stay because it's comfortable. But once you make a decision to change, to cross over, to leave the trauma, and to heal, healing requires a new mindset, a new way of thinking, new set of thoughts. And of course, your thoughts influence your feelings, and your feelings, your emotions, your behavior, your action, all of that. Healing is a new way of seeing things. It's a new way. And when you see it differently, but you're going to have to ditch this. You're going to have to get rid of this. Because you are smart enough to come up with your own. You are smart enough to come up with your own. Why do you think there are 45,000 different Christian denominations? Because people are always coming up with something new, and then they get followers. Because people that don't think, people that do not allow themselves critical thinking skills, and they hear something that sounds good, and so they just decide to follow this and to follow that. The other day, I learned of of a ministry. It's called the Rod of Iron Ministries, and I made a note here. And they carry AR-15s, and the reference is an AR-15 is the armor of God, as in Revelations. They exalt the AR-15 as it represents, the iron of the rod of iron of Jesus that he uses to assert his authority and so forth. And that's a whole ministry. And they literally This is not no toy. They and the religion was started. It was started by a pastor. It's an Asian name, but Sean Moon, Pastor Sean Moon. He's the one that created, invented, made up that ministry, that religion. Look it up. The Rod of Iron Ministries. So you see, people make stuff up. Once you understand that, then you can start taking care of yourself, doing your own research, finding out what's true and what's not true. And if it's not true, then you can do what works for you. But for some reason, we all think, us humans, because when I left church, I my husband was not, he just wanted out of that environment because he could not, that doctrine wasn't, he didn't grow up that way. I'm the one that dragged him into that. But in my mind, I thought, well, we have to be under some kind of uh, spiritual leadership, so forth. That's what we're told. That you need covering, spiritual covering. That's what we're told. And I'm thinking, what does that mean? What does spiritual covering means? If you have issues with, if you have issues, if you have issues in your life, are they there to cover you? What does spiritual covering means? We have not been under any kind of spiritual covering, none at all. You need to know, if you believe that, you need to know what that means to you. You need to know exactly what does that mean. What if you come from under the covering? What will happen to you? And you need to reconcile that. Does it make sense to you? If you are not spiritual, religiously spiritual, what does that mean to you? You have got to process that. You've got to sort that out, my friend. Figure it out for yourself. Now, if it makes sense to you, then it makes sense to you. Then you should be fine. You should be able to become your authentic self with that. Then there's no, but if it doesn't make sense to you, that's where that was a trauma and it needs to be healed, which means you need a new way of thinking. Healing represents a new way that you have decided to heal yourself. When someone is sick and you go to the doctor, they give you prescribed medication, and that is supposed to, in my, I don't like to think medication because I don't favor medication. But let's say, for instance, you decide on holistic medicine. What does that mean? That means that you're going to have to do your juices. You're going to have to get your grapes. You're going to have to get your fruits, your vegetables. You're going to have to go raw. You're going to have to get rid of uh, fast food. You're going to have to get rid of greasy food. You're going to have to get rid of processed food. You're going to have to do that. It requires a new mindset, when it comes to your health, because, the body is designed to heal itself. You just have to give it the right nourishment so that it can create an environment that will heal itself, regenerate the cells, rejuvenate the cells, and, get rid of the bad cells, repair the damaged cells, and, your body, but you're going to have to give it the right nourishment. The same thing is it with your mind. When you have religious trauma or just trauma from your childhood, you're going to have to heal from the trauma. And healing represents a new way of thinking, a new path, a new set of ideas, a new a new mindset, a new chip. And once you make that decision, no, I'm not going to follow this, I'm not going to do this. Once you realize it doesn't work for you, once you realize that truth is not yours, once you realize that, you will know that it's not for you. And that's okay. You can't beat up on yourself. You have to know that you're smart. They're not smarter than you. You are smart. You have intuition. You are well able to. You can heal yourself. Now, if you think that you need to go to a therapist or psychologist or a psychotherapist or a coach or whomever, they can also help you with your healing. There are ways, there are design ways to help you by coaching you and help you with that. And I would encourage you to do that. Get the healing for your sake. Or you could do it on your own by making a decision. But not everyone is, there's always guilt, shame, blame that's dragged through, people drag through with them when you're coming out of trauma, whether it's trauma from growing up or trauma. When I was growing up, I've shared before, my dad was a great provider, but he wasn't the best example of a husband. And for me, it served as a blueprint of what not to accept, what I would not accept. And that was so seared in my mind that it was like a no. Well, it took me a while. I shouldn't say a while, but I knew what I would not tolerate. I just knew it. And yeah, I have been in growing up relationships that I just knew that's just not for me. And ended those relationships. And fortunately, I met my amazing husband that is perfect for me without even having to explain or give any kind of details. No, I just knew it. You know, you will know what's meant for you, whether it has to do with, with your overall well being, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, mentally. You will know what is right for you. And you can't think that somebody else knows what's best for you better than yourself. If it's a child, that's something else, but not an adult, because you're smarter than you know you are. Why? Because society tells us not to think of ourselves higher than anyone else. Well, that's not thinking of yourself higher. That's just thinking highly of yourself because of who you are. Know your worth, know your value. Know your value. And if what you know or what you do is governed by fear, fear of this, fear of hell, fear of offending, fear of punishment, fear of all that, then again, something is radically not right. Anytime, I feel fear over something, something or whatever, I, I pause and I meditate and I try to figure out where it's coming from. Where is that coming from? And then I try to resolve it. I try to figure it out and then I try to resolve it. And sometimes it doesn't even make any sense. It's like, why are you feeling so apprehensive? Why are you feeling so, yeah, yeah. So, my friend, you have got what it takes. Whatever you're feeling over here was created by trauma. And that's a big thing because there's trauma in our lives. My experience growing up, I could have made that traumatic. I could have made that trauma because it wasn't always pleasant for my mom and us seeing, but then again, it was the framework for me. It was I knew, when I became an adult that I would have a fantastic life. And that's something that I've always, I wouldn't even say pursue. It's just something that I've always been in line to because I've always wanted, to be happy, to be content, to be peaceful, to enjoy life to its fullest. And so should you. Don't let anyone put any kind of limitations on you. Just remember that trauma ends where healing begins. You've got trauma and you've got healing. And healing requires a new set of thoughts, a new way of thinking, a new set of belief about yourself. And once you know that, it's interesting because once you know that, no one, it's like, I would say if somebody comes and try to tell me, oh, you need to come back in there, it's too late. It is too late. If I die tomorrow, I'm good. It's too late because I am fully persuaded where I stand right now and happy and content about it. No fear at all. None. Comes a place where you have to live and live now. Because you know what? You have no idea what will happen when you die. You don't know. Everything you know is a concept. Everything you know is a concept from someone else. Everything you know about everything that's been told to you because that's what you know. And even if you say, "Oh, I've had a vision," and that vision will be relative to the information that you receive from external sources, which are embedded in your thinking, and that's the way you think, and that's what happens because that's the way you think. So whatever images and information that's set in your mind, that's why sometimes when you dream, you're dreaming of images that you're familiar with. You're dreaming of things that you have been familiar with, become familiar with. Everything is a concept, and you can create your own concept. For me, a concept is, I have no fear. I have no, you can create a concept. For me, it bugged me because to know that all those years I went through life, and I have no regrets. Don't get me wrong. This mug is too big. I have my other stuff over there. Anyway, forgot to get it together. This whole thing about a concept, it comes from someone else. It comes from outside within and affected my entire life for that many years. Fortunately, I had to make some changes, but I didn't have like church hurt or trauma or abuse or any of that. So I didn't have to go through any of that. But I know many of you have because of your experience within the church walls. So my friend, I'm going to leave you with that. You have a brain, you're smart, you're intelligent, and you have the ability to think logically. You can exercise logical reasoning. This whole thing about lean not onto your own understanding. I had to process that and say, now, wait a minute. Whose understanding will I lean on if it's not my own? Again, you have a concept. You have a concept that's been fed to you and is what you live with. But lean onto your own understanding, process things, analyze it, check things out, and summarize it, come to your own conclusion. Unless you're talking about science, which is, facts and proof and things of that, know that you can govern your own life to create the life you desire. I'm going to leave you with that so that you can give that some thought, to know and to say. You could say it as an affirmation that you are smart, but you need to know that you are smart and you're able to reason. Every Thursday, we have a date right here, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you miss our date, then you can check the show 24/7 on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you need to drop me a note, go to info@theCynthiaLinoxShow.com and you can send me an email and you can, whatever it is you need to share. I'm also a certified life coach. So if you need someone to walk closely alongside with you and through your journey, you can send me an email. I offer a 30-minute complimentary session where we can chat and determine our comfort level and take it from there. So I'm going to say ta-ta, hasta la vista, until next week. You still have one day, Friday. So in the meantime, have a fantastic weekend. Do you realize that 2.5 months from now, the year ends? So you can't wait, my friend. You need to start living now. Ahora mismo. Maintenant. Ahora mismo. So anyway, I will see you next week. Same piece, same channel. Hasta la vista, amigos. Au revoir.